Four-star shooting guard Braylon Mullins has been on Indiana's board for a while, but can they land him now that the college basketball world is taking notice?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Well, thank you so much for being here. Shout out to all my everydayers, those of you that come back each and every day. Truly make this your first listen each and every day. I appreciate you making that. So, Braylon Mullins is a guy that Indiana's been after for quite some time. The four-star shooting guard right here in the state of Indiana. Four-star according to pretty much any site that you can look at. 6'5", 180 pounds is what he's listed at. Of course, the weight can kind of fluctuate a little bit, but from Greenfield, Indiana, in the class of 2025. Indiana's been after him for a while, and the Hoosiers have really been, I'd say, probably the biggest program that has been after him for the last little bit. I mean, you had Indiana, you had Iowa, Indiana State, Virginia Tech is kind of floating around in there too. And all of a sudden, when Braylon Mullins starts playing in some of these spring going into summer high school tournaments, all the big boys other than Indiana, they're like, oh, who's this kid? Wait a minute. Whoa, hold the phone. Who's Braylon Mullins? Where did this guy come from? And now it seems that some of the biggest names in college basketball have taken notice that Braylon Mullins exists. And yeah, he's pretty darn good at basketball. And now the Hoosiers are going to be in a fight. It was always going to be a fight. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt in my mind that it was always going to be a scratch and claw type of thing to get Braylon Mullins. And this is nowhere near being done. I'm not saying that by any means, but I do ask the question, do we think that he can come to Indiana? Absolutely. I think he can be here. And what we've talked about so much on this show is how Mike Woodson and this staff, how they have gone out and they've hit the recruiting trail extremely hard, but they've got to lock down the state again, right? They've got to come in and get the guys that are home, stay home and get the kids here because of just how good this state is. Not saying you can't go outside the walls of the state of Indiana to go get players, but when they're here in your backyard, go get them. Go get them, right? That's what the Hoosiers have to do, and that's what they're going to try and do with four-star shooting guard Braylon Mullins. I love his size. I love his game. Very quick release, good stroke, good with the basketball in his hands. Just a guy that can knock down threes. In these tournaments that he's been playing in here recently, he's got games of like 5 and 8 made threes per game. Sounds pretty good to me, huh? I'll take that all day long. And if you bring that in through the high school ranks, then you can bring him up and he can learn and he can train and get better and develop over the couple of years that he's here in Bloomington. So I absolutely think that Indiana can pull in Braylon Mullins, but you're now starting to see that big-time players in the recruiting landscape of things are starting to get involved. Schools like Duke, schools like UConn have at least taken notice of who Braylon Mullins is. And you start talking about big names like that, and the Hoosiers have their work cut out for them. Indiana has to go to work. But you bring him in that 2025 class, and everything changes. I think he's good enough to possibly earn that 5th star by the time his senior season is done. He's got his senior high school basketball season coming up this winter and next spring. So I think he's good enough to get that 5th star. Now, whether he does or not, I don't know. And a lot of us just think those are numbers and doesn't fully matter. In terms of it being a good player, yes, it matters. But the difference and the slim difference of a high 4-star versus a low 5-star, I mean, that's just for the rankings and for different articles and things like that. He's a good player, okay? He's a really, really good player. And a guy that I think is only getting better, will only get better through his senior season. And if he goes and when he goes and plays Power 6 Division I college basketball, he could be a day one starter. I really do believe that. And I think he could be a day one starter right here on this roster. Now, he is a shooting guard, which means Indiana would have a little work to do given what they've brought in through the portal and what else they're trying to do through the high school ranks. I mean, you do have Cannon Carlisle here right now. You have Bryson Tucker coming in this season. We're talking about him later on in the show today. So you do have a little bit of an adjustment and kind of working around, moving the puzzle pieces, if you will, to see where he could fit. But as of right now, look, recruiting has changed. And at this point, you have to go in and tell this kid, hey, you're our guy. We want you. We've been on you since day one. We want to have you here. You will be a starter in Bloomington. I'm not saying to lie. I'm not saying to lie at all because that's wrong, obviously. But you have to go in and just be, look, we want you this bad. You're our guy. We're going to make it happen for you here. And then you kind of deal with those things as they come. And you're not telling him anything that's not true because Indiana wants him and Indiana can use him. And I firmly believe he could start here. But if you go in and say, well, we've got about 2 or 3 other guys that can play shooting guard, so you'll come in and compete. No, that used to work. That used to work 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. Yeah, kids were fine with that. Kids they fed off of that. They loved that idea. Not anymore. They don't have to have that. They don't have to come in and compete for a job anymore. Guys like Braylon Mullins, if they don't want to compete, they'll go play somewhere else. They'll go choose a different school and they'll make more money and be a starter day one. That's where recruiting is. That's how it's flowing right now. I hate it. I can't stand it, but that's just the truth of the matter. So you got to go tell him, hey, we want you. You're going to be here and you're going to be our guy. And if you do that, and I think you can execute that. Again, I'm not saying you're stretching the truth or lying or anything. I truly believe Indiana can use him in the future from the 2025 class. I think Braylon Mullins is a perfect fit for the Hoosiers. And again, he's here in the state. This would make a lot of noise if you could lock him down and especially fend off all the other programs that are already coming after him after pretty much this past weekend and anybody else that jumps on him between now and his final commitment date and when he signs. The Hoosiers have to get him. Got to. I think it's important. It's not make or break, but he's a guy that, it would make so much noise. It's a huge splash, and it would really mean a lot for the future of this program and the future of Mike Woodson and his staff if you can go and get this kid, Braylon Mullins, the 4-star shooting guard from the state of Indiana. I think he's interested. There's no doubt about it. And Indiana has to use to their advantage that they have been on him since the beginning, even when some of these bigger programs didn't even know who he was. They have to use that. We'll see if it happens. But could Braylon Mullins come to Indiana? Absolutely. I think he very well could. Coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, want to talk about Bryson Tucker, who got his final rankings from 247, some from the other sites, and just talking about what he's going to bring to this Indiana team. We're also going to look at the roster a little bit later today as well. That's all coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Yahoo Finance. Look, wouldn't it be great if you could see all your investment and retirement accounts in one place rather than going and checking 3 or 4 different ones? Just go to one place with Yahoo Finance. You can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend your entire portfolio with confidence. Look, I did that. I took my work 401k. I took some of my other retirement accounts and I put them all into Yahoo Finance, and you literally just get on and you can see everything in one place. It really is the best way to go. When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every financial great uses, Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. You can securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. Again, I've done it, and it's awesome. And I'm younger, right? And it's still really good for me. It helps me kind of understand a little bit more about all of those crazy things when it comes to all your retirement accounts and your investments and stocks and everything. It is the simplest way to go with Yahoo Finance. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day, your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. If you are here, if you're new here, whether you're on YouTube or on the audio, thank you. Hope you are enjoying it. If you're on the audio version of the show, you can follow us on any of your audio platforms. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Also, those of you looking at me right now on YouTube, you can like the video, please. Helps us share, helps us grow, sends it out there to the world. Also, share it with your family and friends if they're Hoosier fans, or if they're not, they need to be here. And be sure you subscribe to the channel. It takes one tap of your thumb, just lets you become a part of the family and lets you know every time we post a new episode. Look, we're on our way to 2,500 subscribers. Folks, that would be unbelievable. I took over with 1,100. You have grown it tremendously. So thank you so much for that. So be sure, if you are not subscribed already, to hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Well, a guy that we have not talked a lot about recently is Bryson Tucker, the high school recruit, the lone high school recruit that Indiana is bringing in for 2024. And look, I don't have to tell you what the disappointment is in the 2024 recruiting class in terms of high school. You had Liam McNeely. You were super excited about it. Everything was going great. And then he signed on the dotted line his NLI, his National Letter of Intent. And then he asked to have it removed. And it's so wild because I was just talking to you about how recruiting has changed. That's a huge part of it too. 30 years ago, that wasn't a thing. You didn't have the audacity to sign on the dotted line to commit to go play somewhere and then ask to have that removed. Like that was a big deal to do that in not a good way. But nowadays, it's just kind of the way of the road, if you will. It's just how things go. And yeah, folks like us, Indiana people, are disappointed when it happens, but it's just like, oh, well, it happens and you just move on. It's crazy how that has happened and how that narrative really has grown in I don't know, maybe the last 5 years, something like that. But then you have to scramble is what Indiana did. We're like, oh crap. Now we have literally nobody coming in through the high school ranks. Liam McNeely was great, but the fact that he was the only one was disappointing in itself. Then you were left with absolutely nothing. And you're like, oh no, here we go. We're in big trouble. Then this just falls into your lap. Bryson Tucker, who is a phenomenal player. We'll talk about him in a second. His situation, if you remember, he was going to play in the developmental leagues, right, for the NBA. And then all of a sudden, he had planned on doing this for a while. Like, had already decided, was not going to play college ball, was going to play in these NBA development leagues, trying to get to the pros a little bit quicker and kind of develop his game in a different way. And then all of a sudden, those leagues were canceled. They were done. They don't exist anymore. And he was in the same boat. He was like, oh crap, what do we do now? And it was kind of a match made in heaven, if you will, where Indiana was looking for somebody and Bryson Tucker was looking for a home. And it just worked out that he will be in Bloomington. And I'm excited about him, man. Bryson Tucker is going to be a phenomenal basketball player in college. And his final rankings, according to 247, he's ranked number 28 in the class of 2024. And this is a cool stat from them as well. For a seventh straight year, Indiana basketball has signed a top 30 national recruit in the final rankings, and McDonald's All-American in Bryson Tucker. He's the number 28 national player in the class, number 10 small forward, and number 2 prospect from Virginia. And I know I was kind of looping him in that shooting guard possibility with his size and just with his handles and his scoring ability. I think you could see him play there a hair, but I don't know. I think that's something we have to truly find out when he gets here. And, for for Bryson Tucker, he really is going to be a superstar. And I think he fits in on this roster really well. Now, whether he sees the floor a ton this year, I think is for us to find out, because you have your starting five as of right now. You have your small forward and your guard and your four. I mean, any of those four positions that he could kind of bounce back and forth from, you've got it. You've got Carlisle at the 2, you've got Mbaka at the 3, and you've got Renew at the 4. But good news is, here's the good news. You bring in a high-level freshman, and he doesn't have to be the face of the program, right, John Calipari? He doesn't have to be the go-to guy and try to carry you to the promised land. He can come in, develop at his own pace, play 15, 18, 20 minutes a game, and be an important factor off the bench. Could he earn himself a starting spot? I mean, I guess, but I don't see that happening. I don't see the starting five being broken up as of right now for Indiana, barring any, obviously, injuries or anything that could happen. But no, I think he's going to be a role player off the bench. Moving into next year, then yeah, I think he could probably compete to be a starter, depending on what happens with McKenzie and Mbaka and things like that at the 3 spot. But Bryson Tucker as a top 30 player, again, Indiana does it for the 7th straight year. You have to continue that trend. Would we want to see more? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. But Bryson Tucker brings scoring. He brings a little bit of shooting. That's got to get better. But he just brings explosiveness. That's the word that I want to use, and that always comes back to me when I go and watch film on Bryson Tucker. Is he's just such a streaky, good player. Streaky in a good way, as in can just get to the basket immediately, and just a sneaky good player with the ball in his hands, with playmaking abilities, and his athleticism is off the charts. I mean, just watch him go up for rebounds and run up and down the floor. The guy's a freak of an athlete. He's bringing that to Bloomington, bringing some excitement, I think, to Indiana, where your 2024 class as a whole is disappointing, but Bryson Tucker is a superstar in the making. Another McDonald's All-American will fit the system nicely. If he can start to develop more of that jump shot and become just a all-around scorer, I think you're in for a dangerous time if you're Indiana's opponents. Now, I think his defense is really good too. The guy can play. Look at his length and his size, man. The guy can do it all. And he comes in, and I really do think this was a great pickup. He could have gone played anywhere. I mean, he wanted to go play in the G League Ignite stuff. He was going to go play basically minor league NBA basketball, and it got shut down, and now he's settling, really, to play college basketball. The guy can play. The guy's good. He's already going to be a superstar. Indiana has to bring the best out of him, and this is a perfect time, if you're Mike Woodson, perfect time and a perfect example to develop him even more and send him off to the NBA and continue to have that narrative that you can come to Indiana and you can go to the league. Because you've seen it with, of course, there's guys playing there right now, and you're sending Khalil Ware to do it. You're hoping to do the same with guys like Ballo and some of our guards, and maybe even McKenzie Mbaka or Malik Renew. That has to be a part of the recruiting pitch nowadays for the Indiana Hoosiers. And if you can do that with Bryson Tucker, yes, he was somebody already destined to make the league, but he's going to have that Indiana tag on him for the rest of the way. As long as you keep him here in Bloomington, this is a perfect opportunity for the Hoosiers coaching staff to add it to the list and just continue to prove you can make it to the league through Bloomington. I think Bryson Tucker is going to do that. I think he's going to be a superstar, and I cannot wait to see what he does here in Bloomington. Well, coming up on our Locked On Hoosiers final segment, we'll look at the roster so far. Speaking of Bryson Tucker, looking at what the roster holds as of now, 2 more spots to fill. Where could we go for those? We'll have that for you in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. Have you been watching the playoffs? They've been fantastic. NHL, both, and the NBA. I mean, both of them have just been crazy. Had a double overtime game in hockey the other night, and you've got NBA second round going on too. And man, I'm just over the top excited. And I have a little bit more fun when I'm sitting there on the couch or in the recliner looking through my FanDuel app. And FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Final segment here on the show. Appreciate you being here, making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen each and every day, whether it's audio, whether it's video. Thank you so much for being here. We were talking about Bryson Tucker and what he's going to bring to this Indiana roster, but let's get a little refresher on what that roster looks like. We need to talk about what this Indiana team is going to look like. And you look at it from an eligibility standpoint, because of course, Bryson Tucker has all 4 years left being an incoming freshman. You've got him and you have Ja'Kai Newton, somebody that we mentioned on the show yesterday that a lot of you, my fans and Indiana fans in general, are really excited about and should be with Ja'Kai Newton. The guy can really play, and people kind of forgot about him when he had to redshirt because of injury. Now he's coming in as a redshirt freshman with all the possibilities in the world. Sky's the limit for this kid. So 2 really exciting guys. It is almost like you bring him into your new recruiting class. I guess you could say that if you wanted to. But you have 2 young, fresh guys that are going to see the floor a little bit, have a chance to work on some things and develop as you go. You have Gabe Cupps, Mackenzie Mbako, Miles Rice, Cannon Carlisle, all with 3 years left. Now, Gabe Cupps, you all know, if you've been watching this show long enough and listening to this show long enough, you understand my thoughts on Gabe Cupps. Nothing against the kid personally. He's not good enough to be on the floor right now anymore. He played his role, he did his job, but it's not going to happen. And I saw somebody say this in my YouTube comments yesterday. I'm surprised he didn't transfer, and I kind of agree with you on that. I don't know why he hung around. I think he just loves Indiana, and he's playing Division I Power 6 basketball. Good for you, man. Hope the best for you. If he is hanging around here, he's got 3 years left. You can use him if you absolutely have to, but don't expect him to be a huge part of the team this year. Mackenzie Mbako, of course, your star-studded freshman that took a little bit to get going, but now he's playing some of his best basketball. He decided to come back to Indiana. Look, he could have left, and that was a big win in itself for Indiana to keep him around in Bloomington. I look for him to have a huge sophomore year for Mackenzie Mbako. And then you start talking Miles Rice and Cannon Carlisle, your 2 transfer guards that both have 3 years of eligibility remaining. That is huge. That is unheard of in the transfer portal now, because so many guys leave their current program with just the 1 year. We'll get to that with Indiana in a second. You bring in 2 guards that could start for you realistically for the next 2 or 3 years. Do you know how strong that is in today's era of college basketball? The Hoosiers hit home runs on these 2 guys, and I hope they pan out. I think they will, but you never know. But if they do, you've got 2 lockdown starters on top of whatever you bring in to compete, and then you've got a problem, but a good problem, competition. You've got depth. That's always good to have in the room. But right now, with 3 years of eligibility, Miles Rice at the 1, Cannon Carlisle at the 2, you cannot go wrong. I'm excited to see what they bring to Indiana this season. Malik Renew, the lone player with 2 years of eligibility. He came back. He could have gone anywhere. He could have left. But all the stories and all the things I've been told and what I've heard about Malik Renew, there were few guys that cared more last year than Malik Renew. There were few guys who were more emotional after the season was over in the Big Ten tournament than Malik Renew. He cares. He wants to win. He wants to be better so bad. Remember all the offseason work he did a year ago to become the better version of himself? I think he's going to do that again this year, because he could be one of the best players in the Big Ten. I think he could be the best power forward in the conference if he continues to do what he's doing. And when he's playing well, Indiana wins games. It's not a crazy idea. It's not a crazy thought. That's not breaking news to you here on this Thursday afternoon. It is just true. Malik Renew helps Indiana be better. And yes, he's only got the 2 years left, but if he has a good year, you could see him test the NBA draft waters. I don't know. We'll have to see what that kind of looks like following the season, but he's going to be a superstar once more for us. And maybe some of the pressure's off of him too, now that you do bring in Ballo. So his counterpart Ware is gone, but you bring in another 7-footer. We'll get to him in a second. You also have Mbako playing well, and he's going to have 2 guards that can make Malik Renew better offensively. As long as he can stay out of foul trouble, we're good to go. We're fine. If Malik Reneau can stay on the floor, good things are going to happen for the Hoosiers. Here's your 1 year of eligibility list. Now, this one is a little bit different. Anthony Leal came back, super senior, been here a long time. Excited to see him. I don't think he's going to be a huge part of it, but he's one of the heart and souls of this team. So I'm excited to see him back for another year. Same thing with Trey Galloway. Just he'll see the floor quite a bit more than Anthony Leal will. I mean, Trey Galloway will be possibly your sixth man, seventh man off the bench. I mean, I think that's kind of where we're looking at right now for the super senior and Trey Galloway. I'm happy he came back. I am. I'm really excited that he came back and he gets to play one more final year. The final farewell tour of Trey Galloway. It's like a band. It's like Aerosmith right now going on their farewell tour. It's a little long. It's a little stretched out, but it's worth it. And we're glad that it's happening. Trey Galloway coming back is exciting. The Hoosiers fans are excited. They're going to be all about it. And his final couple of games there in Assembly Hall will really be emotional for him and a lot of us Hoosiers fans that have watched him play over the last handful of years. So what will his role be? Limited is what I'll say. Limited compared to what it's been as a starter his entire career, basically. And so I'm ready to see him play, but he needs to come in and just be effective when his name and number are called. And I think he'll be ready for that. Maybe the pressure's off of him too, and he can just kind of relax, have fun, and be his final year of college basketball. Then you've got Luke Goody, the transfer, the sniper, the shooter that's coming in. We're really, I'm anxious to see what he's going to do if he can continue to be a shooter and if he can elevate Indiana's three-point game moving forward. And then there's Oumar Ballo. He's a 1 year rental, but he's a damn good one. You bring in the number one player through the transfer portal in this offseason, and you replace a 7-footer who's going to the NBA with another 7-footer that very well could go to the NBA. Oumar Ballo will elevate this team to higher ceilings than we've seen in a long time. So all of these players combined, you still have 2 open roster spots. You're going after guys in the portal. We've told you about those right now or over the last couple of days. We'll see where they go. And here's the thing too. I don't even know if Indiana's going to try and fill both roster spots. I'm just being honest. I think they may fill one. If they happen to fill the other one, okay. But I don't think it's a huge pressure situation. I don't think they're just got to fill them both, got to go. I don't think they're worried about it because I think they're happy with where the roster is right now. And you're only bringing in somebody now to kind of say you did and fill out the bench a little bit more. Your starters are set. Your rotation is set. You are ready to go. This Indiana roster, man, it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have more episodes about it moving throughout the spring and the summer. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you being here, truly making this your first listen each and every day. Audio listeners, thank you so much. Follow us on wherever you're listening to us. Make sure you turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Those of you on YouTube, I appreciate you as well. Make sure you like the video, send it to your family and friends, comment down below. Also, subscribe to the channel. We're well on our way to 2,500 subscribers, so thank you so much for that. Add this to your rotation. Be sure you're here every single day. My everydayers are the reason that we do this. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then? So until then, until next time, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.